Alright, so now we're going to begin this part where we actually begin to identify some of the main operators and doing some more work on this. So let's go ahead and just turn your book to page 229, some of it. Essentially we're asking what's the main operator. All these are well formed, but which is the main operator? Well, in this case, as I told you, you go with the tildes in front of individual letters, and so that was the weakest. And so then the dot here is controlling both sides, both the A and the tilde B. All tildes controlling is that. So it would make the dot the main operator. Okay? Same thing here on number 2. The tilde is just simply controlling this one letter, but the wedge is controlling everything on both sides, including that tilde. So it makes wedge the main operator. In this case, the stuff in parentheses is being held subservient to this wedge, and so the wedge is controlling everything inside. Here it's controlling the dot, and it's controlling the L, and so the wedge is the main operator. They're going to start inside the parentheses and then move out. Once again, the tilde in front of the letters, all it's controlling is that one little letter. The wedge here is controlling both of these, right? But the dot is controlling everything inside those parentheses as well as everything over here. And so the dot becomes the main operator. So that's dot, wedge, wedge, and dot. Let's go ahead and we'll do about 4 or 5 more of these. In this case, this horseshoe is controlling A and it's controlling L, but it's in parentheses and the tilde is negating everything inside of it. And so the tilde is taking ultimate power on this one and making it the main operator. In this case, the tilde negates the Z and the tilde negates the X, but the triple bar controls that tilde. So that makes the main operator the triple bar. So you start with these individual letters, and then this one, and then you would move on to that main operator. Here, the tilde is controlling that, and it's controlling, but the horseshoe is controlling tilde A as well as C, making the horseshoe the main operator. Alright? Well, here's one more. We'll do one more of these, and then I'll let you, we'll go down after that, down on the page. Here, tilde is controlling the S, but that tilde is controlling the tilde S, but ultimately the wedge is controlling the Y. And so if you were to think about this, this tilde is actually controlling that whole statement, and that tilde is controlling just that. So you can kind of say, well, there's sort of a couple subservient levels in this. Let's go down just a little bit further. Let's go like to number 15. How about that? Here, you do tildes in front of individual letters. So tilde's the weakest. It's just controlling that U. And this tilde is controlling that W. And this tilde is controlling that Y. So then what we have is we have this horseshoe, which controls both of these. But it's inside the brackets with this dot. So this dot's ultimately controlling everything inside the parentheses. So the dot becomes the main operator within that bracket. But then the brackets relate that Z to it, which makes that Z control this, the horseshoe control the Z as well as this dot here. And so we have to conclude that the horseshoe is the main operator. So you can sort of just follow the way in. This one is controlling Z as well as all of this. Then the dot is the main operator within the parentheses, and the horseshoe is the main operator within the parentheses here, but then the tildes are the main operators with each individual letter. Okay? Now, I'm going to skip over part 2 and the translations. We're going to come straight down here to where we say, well, what if we know? Let A, B, and C be true, let X, Y, and Z be false. And so the idea here is if Z is false, then we have basically tilde false, which is true. And that's all you have to do. B is true, which makes dot, and I'm just going to do it as an ampersand, and then Y is false. So it's true ampersand false, and true dot false is false. The only way it can be true is if both sides are true. So this one is true dot tilde false, and tilde false is true, so true dot true, which makes it true. Okay? And you can just sort of move your way along. Let's go on down a few more, down to say number 19, because we want to get a little bit more difficult. We'll assume that it's tilde true, wedge, false, horseshoe, true, parentheses. Oops, we want that to be lower. So we start off with the one in front of, a tilde in front of an individual letter. So it becomes false, wedge, false, horseshoe, true. And so we go with the stuff in parentheses, so it's false, wedge, false, horseshoe, true. And just because the antecedent is false and the consequence true, we don't know that it's a false statement. We just, because you can have the consequent being true without the antecedent being true. It's just that the antecedent is true, the consequent has to be false. So it's false, wedge, true, which is true. So we know that's a true statement. And we can continue along. Let's do one more of these, but let's do it without having to actually put it inside here. So we have true, and we know B is true. We know Y is false, and we know A is true. So what we can do is we can come back over here and put the T in front of the tilde, basically eliminating this one. And we can do this letter and make it false. And then what we need to do is we need to move to the things inside these. So true dot false is false. And true horseshoe true is true. But then we have a tilde out here in front of this entire thing, and the main operator within the parentheses is this one, right? So it becomes false, makes that true, and then true horseshoe true is true. And so we simply mark it. Okay? Now it's a little bit hard, and like I said, it's probably a little easier on paper because you can do strike throughs. You can kind of just put a little, if you do it on paper, just put a real light line through it, just so it doesn't catch your eye. And that's the easiest way to do that. Don't cross it out, don't scribble it out, don't make it so you can't even see what it is. Just put the lightest of lines through it. If you're using pencil, make it lighter than the rest, and that way you can not look at it. Okay? Now, I want to do just a couple more of these, make sure I have enough time. Just one or two of these down here at the bottom. Determine the truth value of the following statements when possible. Let A and B be true and let Y and Z be false. So in this case, essentially what we're saying, we'll assume this is true, but we don't know what Q is. Well, would this be a true or false statement? Well, we know A is true, and all you need is one disjunct to be true, so we know it's true whether or not we know whether Q is true or false. And so we're done. Number two, we know Y is false, but we don't know what Q is. So in the end, we can't determine what the truth value of this is, because if Q is true, it's going to be true, but if Q is false, it's going to be false. So we can't determine the truth value of that one. Here, P and Q are unknown, so B is true, the dot, and we don't know what that one is. Well, once again, if P is true, it'll be true, and if P is false, it'll be false. So we don't know what the truth value of this one is. But, on the other hand, we know F is false, but we don't know what P is. But it doesn't matter if P is true, because it's always going to be false. And so these essentially are getting you to think about the fact that you don't actually have to even know the truth value of all the parts to be able to begin to guess what the truth value of the whole thing will be. Because if, like I said, if one of them already we know is false, we know the statement's going to be false if it's an AND statement. Okay? Good luck, and if you have any questions, email me or go to the homework help.